December 21st, 1939, 4 hours past midnight. The thermometer reads minus 43 degrees Celsius on the Kalai front in eastern Finland. Soviet Lieutenant Ivan Petrov checks it twice. He doesn't believe it. His breath crystallizes before it leaves his mouth. Around him, 900 men of the 56th Rifle Corps huddle in their positions waiting for dawn. They've been here for 3 weeks. They've advanced exactly 0 meters. Something is wrong. Not wrong in the way you can explain to a commanding officer. Not wrong in the way that shows up on tactical maps drawn in warm headquarters 100 kilometers behind the lines. This wrongness lives in the space between heartbeats, in the silence before men stop breathing. In 3 weeks, Petrov's battalion has lost 97 men. They never heard the shots that took them. The Red Army doesn't believe in ghosts. They believe in artillery barrages and mechanized infantry and the overwhelming mathematics of industrial warfare. They've brought 405,000 soldiers to crush Finland's tiny army of 300. The Soviet Union is 4 times the aircraft, 100 times the tanks, 30 times the artillery pieces. But mathematics can't explain why men step behind trees and never step out again. Why soldiers collapse in their trenches with neat holes in their forehead. Why the snow stays pristine and empty even after your friend drops without a sound. The Finns have started calling him Belaya Smirt, the White Death. By dawn, Lieutenant Petrov will understand why. By the time the weak winter sun climbs above the frozen forest at 0800 hours, he'll be among the 25 men who never see the next day. 25 men, 1 sniper, 1 day. The deadliest day of the deadliest sniper in human history. To understand how one man could become legend, how reality itself could sound like propaganda, we need to go back 11 months. January 1939, a farmhouse in Rautjärvi, eastern Finland, population 27. This is where Simo Häyhä lives. 5 feet 3 inches tall, 92 pounds, a dairy farmer who hunts in his spare time. He's 33 years old, unmarried, and when he speaks, which isn't often, his neighbors describe his voice as quieter than snow falling on snow. Nothing about him suggests destiny. But there's something the official records don't show. Something that makes the local shooting competitions almost unfair. Simo Häyhä has been hunting in these forests since he was 5 years old. By the time he's 17, he can shoot a squirrel's eye at 200 meters. Not hit the squirrel, hit the eye he shoots. He doesn't do this to show off. He does it because ammunition costs money and his family doesn't have money to waste. In his small room in that farmhouse, he keeps a logbook. Target, distance, environmental conditions, wind speed, temperature, snow depth. For 18 years, he's been recording every single shot. Not for glory, not for recognition, because that's what you do when you're serious about your craft. November 30th, 1939, everything changes. At 0630 hours, 450,000 Soviet troops crossed the Finnish border at 16 separate points, the largest invasion force assembled in Europe since the Great War. The reason is geopolitical. Stalin wants territory, wants buffer zones, wants to test his reformed Red Army before the larger conflict with Germany that everyone knows is coming. Finland has exactly 3 months to prepare, 3 months to train, 3 months to transform farmers and shopkeepers and teachers into soldiers. Simo Häyhä receives his mobilization notice on December 1st. He reports to his old unit, the 6th Company of JR-34, the 34th Infantry Regiment. They hand him a rifle. It's not just any rifle. It's an M28/30, a Finnish modified variant of the Mosin Nagant. The stock is custom fit to Finnish proportion. The sights are Finnish manufactured, more precise than the Russian originals. The trigger has been modified for a cleaner break at exactly 1.8 kilograms of pressure. Simo Häyhä has fired this exact model 7,300 times in training and competition. He knows every quirk of its action, every tendency of its barrel. When his commander asks if he needs a telescopic sight, Häyhä says no. Not because he's arrogant, because scopes have 3 fatal flaws in Finnish winter. They fog up in extreme cold. They require raising your head higher above cover. And in low-light conditions at dawn and dusk, when most combat happens, the glass lens catches sunlight like a mirror, creating a glint that enemy counter-snipers can spot from 800 meters away. Simo Häyhä will fight the largest army in the world with iron sight. December 7th, the 6th Company deploys to the Kola front, 60 kilometers northeast of Lake Ladoga. This is the most critical sector of Finland's defense. If it falls, the Soviet forces can push west and cut the entire country in half. The terrain is almost impossibly hostile to mechanized warfare. Dense pine forests broken by frozen lakes and rivers. No real roads, temperatures that make metal brittle and gasoline freeze in fuel tanks. The Red Army will learn these lessons in blood. But Häyhä sees something different when he looks at this landscape. He sees home. These are the forests he's hunted for 28 years. He knows where the game trails run, where the wind channels between the trees, which snowdrifts are solid enough to support a man's weight and which will swallow you to your chest. The Soviet invasion plan depends on speed. Punch through the Finnish lines in 2 weeks, install a puppet government, present the world with a fait accompli before anyone can intervene. Instead, they're about to meet a man who can become part of the forest itself. December 12, 1939, 0400 hours. Simo Häyhä belly crawls through snow that hasn't been disturbed in 3 days. He's wearing a white snowsuit made from bed sheets. His rifle is wrapped in white cloth strips. He carries no backpack, no extra equipment, just 2 canvas pouches with 60 rounds of 7.62 2x53 ammunition. Everything else is weight that slows you down. The Soviet lines are 300 meters ahead. He can smell them before he sees them. Tobacco smoke, boot grease, the sour scent of too many men living too close together. They think they're hidden in the tree line. They're not hidden. Häyhä picks his position with the care of a master jeweler selecting a diamond. It's not the closest position. It's not the position with the best view. It's the position where 6 different escape routes converge, where the natural shadows deepen, where the background breaks up his silhouette against 3 different angles of approach. He builds his nest, not a trench. Trenches trap you. A shallow scrape in the snow behind a fallen log, barely deep enough to hide a loaf of bread. He pours water on the snow in front of his position, letting it freeze into a smooth surface. This serves 3 purposes. It prevents snow from puffing up when he shoots. It dampens sound, and it gives him a smooth, stable platform for the rifle. Then he does something that sounds insane until you understand the physics. He fills his mouth with snow. The human breath in -40 temperatures creates a steam cloud that can be spotted from 200 meters. Every sniper's nightmare. But melting snow in your mouth drops your breath temperature. No steam, no sign, no target indicator that says, shoot here. His tongue goes numb in 40 seconds. At 0615 hours, the winter sun begins its slow crawl above the horizon. Dawn combat hours, the most dangerous time of day. This is when both sides stand to, when alertness is highest, when mistakes mean termination. Häyhä watches the Soviet positions through eyes narrowed to slits. Not through his sights, not yet. The human eye catches movement better than any optic. He's looking for the tell, the gesture that... The man who's in the same spot twice, the officer who checks the same section of line. There. 600 meters out, a Soviet officer, probably a lieutenant from the insignia barely visible at this distance, doing exactly what officers do. Checking his men, making sure they're awake, being visible because leadership requires visibility. Häyhä slides the rifle into his shoulder. The metal is so cold it burns through his gloves. He places his cheek against the stock, the exact same position he's assumed 7,300 times. The iron sights settle. His breathing slows. 4 breaths per minute, then 3, then 2. The mathematics happen automatically. Wind speed, 8 kilometers per hour from the northeast. Temperature, -41. Range, 600 meters. The bullet will drop approximately 1.2 meters at that distance. He aims at the officer's collar instead of his head. The officer turns, presenting his profile. Häyhä's finger takes up the trigger slack. 1.8 kilograms of pressure, no more, no less. The M28/30 roars, 600 meters away. The Soviet lieutenant's body language changes in a way that's hard to describe unless you've seen it. One moment he's animated, human, alive. The next moment he's geometry falling through space. The men around him scatter. They don't know where the shot came from. At 600 meters, the sound of the impact arrived before the sound of the shot, creating confusion. Häyhä doesn't move. Movement gets you seen. Movement gets you targeted. 17 seconds pass. The Soviets are still confused, still scanning the wrong direction. Second shot. A soldier who made the mistake of standing still while others scattered. 480 meters sent to mass. The rifle bucks. The soldier drops. Häyhä chambers another round. The smooth action of the Mosin Nagant is muscle memory. 19 seconds. Third shot. A commissar trying to organize a response. 520 meters. The bullet catches him high in the chest. Good. Now the Soviets know they're being engaged, but knowing you're being hunted and knowing where the hunter hides are 2 different forms of terror. They start firing back. Machine gun bursts, tearing into the forest. Rifle shots snapping randomly into the trees. The universal human response to sniper fire. Make noise, suppress the threat, force him to keep his head down. Except Häyhä isn't where they think he is. Their return fire is hitting positions 30 meters to his left. They're shooting at muzzle flash that doesn't exist. His firing position is angled so the flash reflects away from enemy sightline. Fourth shot. A machine gun is silhouetted against the snow. 390 meters. The man collapses across his weapon. Fifth shot. The assistant gunner trying to take over 410 meters. He doesn't reach the gun. The Soviet firing stops. Not because they've given up, because their officers are gone and nobody knows what to do next. Häyhä begins his extraction, not standing up and running. That would make him visible for 200 meters. Instead, he crawls backward through the route he memorized in the dark. 5 meters. Stop. Listen. 5 more meters. Stop. Listen. It takes him 42 minutes to move 100 meters. By 0800 hours, he's back in finish line. His commander asks for a report. 5. Häyhä says one word. No elaboration. 5 confirmed. One morning. The war is 12 days old. He has 93 days. The thing about patterns is that someone always noted the Red Army isn't stupid. By mid-December, started calling emergency Kala. Why are their casualties so disproportionately high? Why are officers being targeted with such precision at specialized schools equipped with proper scopes? The Soviet counter-sniper doctrine is sophisticated. They've been refining it since the Civil War. 3-man teams with spotter-sniper coordination, pre-plotted fields of fire, discipline, noise, and camouflage. None of it works. The problem is philosophical. Soviet doctrine assumes the sniper is trying to hold the ground, defending a fixed position that can be identified and destroyed, but Häyhä isn't defending positions, he's hunting. Every day follows the same pattern. He leaves finish lines at 0400. He never uses the same route twice. He never occupies the same position twice. He shoots until the return fire becomes coordinated enough to threaten him, usually 5 to 12 shots, then he disappears. The Soviets try everything. They station counter-sniper teams in trees overnight, hoping to catch him at dawn. Häyhä doesn't appear where they expect. They saturate suspected positions with artillery fire. He's already gone. They send probing attacks with infantry to flush him out. He lets them pass within 50 meters, invisible in his snow-covered hide. December 21st, the day Lieutenant Petrov's world ends. Häyhä is working a sector that hasn't seen him for 6 days. The Soviets have relaxed slightly. That's the opening. His first shot comes at 0630 hours, a sentry at 400 meters. The man drops without sound. The Soviets respond instantly this time. They've learned. Mortars start dropping rounds in a search pattern. Machine guns open up on suspected positions. A proper textbook response to sniper contact, but textbooks assume you know what quadrant the sniper occupied. Häyhä's second shot comes from a position 9 degrees different from where they think he is. An officer trying to coordinate the counterfire. 540 meters, the Soviets wheel around, confused, firing at the new angle. Third shot, original position. They've been flanked by one man. 420 meters, a soldier operating a mortar. The man falls backward into his own weapon. Fourth shot, 500 meters, a radio op. Fifth shot, a runner carrying orders. Sixth, seventh, eighth. By 0800 hours, Häyhä has fired 25 rounds, 25 shots, 25 hits, no misses. Not because he's superhuman, because he only shoots when he's certain. This single engagement breaks something in Soviet moral calculus. It's not just the casualties. 25 men is a lot, but not strategically significant. It's the helplessness, the mathematical impossibility. How do you fight an enemy you can't see, you can't target, you can't predict? The Red Army does what threatened militaries always do. They escalate. January 1940, the Soviet High Command issues Special Order 3847. Translation, find the White Death, terminate him at any cost. They assign entire counter-sniper companies to the Kala sector. They bring in their best shooters from other fronts, and they authorize artillery strikes on suspected sniper position, even without confirmed sightings. Shoot first, confirm later. They offer decorations, promotions, and extra rations to whoever brings back proof of his elimination. The reward climbs. First it's a month's wages, then 3 months, then a full year's pay. For enlisted men in the Red Army making 400 rubles annually, this is life-changing wealth. The hunted becomes the most valuable target in Finland. Häyhä knows about the bounty. The whole Finnish line knows. The Soviet prisoners talk. The intercepted radio communications talk. Everyone is talking about the White Death. He doesn't change anything. Every morning at 0400 hours, he crawls out. Every morning he shoots until the danger becomes too concentrated. Every morning he comes back. His confirmed tally climbs past 100, past 200, past 300. His longest confirmed shot, 580 meters. A Soviet sniper who made the mistake of wearing dark clothing against white snow. His shortest shot, 32 meters. A Soviet patrol that stumbled into his position. He dropped all 6 before they could return fire, then disappeared before reinforcements arrived. The winter of 1939 to 40 is the second coldest in Finland since 1828. Temperatures regularly drop below -40. Men are freezing to death in their defensive position. Weapons stop working, metal shatters like glass. But Häyhä thrives, not because he's immune to cold. His company mates see him shivering like everyone else around the warming fires at night, because he understands that the cold is tactical. It empties the forest of all but the most desperate or the most determined. It makes men huddle in their positions instead of patrolling. It makes them vulnerable. February 19th, 1940, day 111 of the war. Häyhä's confirmed count reaches 505. 505 men, 3 months and 19 days, an average of 4.5 per day every single day, and the worst winter conditions recorded in a century. The mathematics are insane. For comparison, the second deadliest sniper in recorded history has 242 confirmed eliminations. Häyhä has more than doubled. He's achieved what shouldn't be possible, what shouldn't exist outside of propaganda, except every single confirmation has been witnessed, verified by his spotter, recorded in official military logs with time, date, location, and circumstance. The Soviets know they're running out of time. The international pressure is building. The Finnish defense is holding. The invasion that was supposed to take 2 weeks has stretched past 3 months with no end in sight. They need a victory, any victory. On March 5th, they massed 40 artillery pieces and coordinate a bombardment specifically targeting Häyhä's known operating area. 2,000 shells, 30 minutes of continuous fire. They're not trying to spot him and trying to erase every square meter of ground where he might. The forest becomes a moonscape. Trees shattered into kindling. Snow turned to steam. The ground itself restructured into frozen mud and ice. The Finnish command ordered to stay back for 72 hours. Let the bombardment clear. The Soviets burn themselves out. He waits exactly 24 hours. March 6, 1940, 04:30 hours. Simo Häyhä crawls into the devastated forest one last time. But the trees here are ghost white splinters jutting from cratered snow. Nothing that lived yesterday still lives today. The bombardment has been so intense that the usual silence of Finnish winter has been replaced by something worse, the complete absence of natural sound. No birds, no wind through branches, because there are no branches, just dead acoustic space. Häyhä moves through it like smoke. He picks a position that yesterday didn't exist. A crater created by a 122 mm howitzer shell. It's tactically wrong in every conventional sense. Too exposed on 3 sides, too obvious as a shell hole, no retreat route. That's exactly why he chooses it. The Soviets have trained themselves to look for the places he should be. He's been inside the decision-making cycle for 3 months, always one step ahead. Now he's going to be in the place he shouldn't be, the place their doctrine says only an amateur would choose, counting on them assuming he's not an amateur. At 0645 hours, a Soviet patrol moves through the devastated sector. 9 men, they're not walking carefully. They think the bombardment did its job. They think the White Death is either gone or terminated or too smart to come back to scorched ground. They're wrong on all 3 counts. Häyhä lets them pass within 60 meters, not because he can't shoot them. 60 meters is point-blank range for a rifle, because shooting them would give away his position to the follow-on forces. He's not here for 9 men. He's here for the officers who will come investigate once the patrol reports the area clear. At 0720 hours, they arrive, a command group, 5 officers, 3 radiomen, 2 guards, moving with the confidence of people who think the area is secure. Häyhä's first shot drops the senior officer, a major, judging by the insignia. 430 meters, the man falls mid-stride. The response is instant and overwhelming. Every single Soviet position within 800 meters opens fire. Machine guns, rifles, even a light mortar. They've been waiting for him. The patrol was bait, the counter-ambush. The fire is so intense the trees Häyhä passed 200 meters back are literally being sawed down by machine gun fire. Mortars are walking a pattern toward his position. The Soviets have learned. They've adapted. This isn't random suppression. This is doctrine. Häyhä has approximately 40 seconds before the mortar pattern reaches his crater. He doesn't run. Running gets you shot in the back. Instead, he rolls to the lip of the crater, presents his rifle, and does something that seems like suicide. He engages the machine gun position that's flanking him. Second shot. The gunner drops. The gun goes silent. Third shot, the assistant gunner reaching for the weapon. He doesn't make it. The mortar pattern is 15 seconds out. Häyhä can hear the crump, crump, crump getting closer, feel the concussions traveling through frozen ground. Fourth shot. A Soviet officer trying to redirect fire. 500 meters. The officer goes down. 10 seconds. Fifth shot. A runner. The man falls in mid-stride. 5 seconds. Häyhä rolls back into his crater and presses himself against the side with the most overhead cover. A lip of frozen earth, maybe 30 centimeters high. The mortar shell impacts 6 meters from his position. The physics of artillery and frozen ground are different from summer warfare. The shells don't bury themselves and create directional fragmentation. They detonate on surface contact, creating an omnidirectional blast, shrapnel patterns that spread horizontal instead of vertical. Häyhä feels something punch through his jaw. Not a direct hit from a mortar fragment, something smaller, faster, a piece of shrapnel that's been augmented. Soviet explosive rounds designed to fragment on impact, or possibly a rifle round from a counter-sniper who finally got a clear shot. The bullet enters below his left cheekbone and exits through his jaw, taking most of his lower face with it. This is the injury that should end him, that does end 90% of men who suffer it. The human nervous system's response to catastrophic facial trauma is immediate unconsciousness. Your brain protects itself by shutting down. Add blood loss, shock, and exposure to minus 37-degree temperatures, and the survival window closes in minutes. Häyhä stays conscious. His squad mates who pull him out 7 minutes later, 7 minutes that feel like 7 hours under sustained Soviet fire, will later say he never made a sound. He kept pressure on his wound with one hand and gripped his rifle. When they stretcher him back to the aid station, he's still conscious, still breathing. Half his face is gone, but his eyes are tracking, aware, alert. The field surgeon takes one look and begins preparing morphine for comfort care. This isn't an injury you survive, this is an injury you make peaceful. Häyhä shakes his head, refuses the morphine, because morphine drops body temperature. And dropping body temperature in minus 37 degrees means you don't wake up. They evacuate him to the military hospital in WWII, 60 kilometers through frozen forest roads under sporadic Soviet artillery fire. The evacuation takes 11 hours. 11 hours where he should have bled out, should have gone into shock, should have given up. He arrives at the hospital still conscious. The surgeon who receives him is Captain Olavi Herva, a maxillofacial specialist who trained in Stockholm. He looks at Häyhä's wound and begins what will become 26 separate reconstructive surgeries over 7 years. The injury is catastrophic. The bullet has destroyed his left cheekbone, shattered his jaw in 4 places, removed most of his lower left face, and caused massive soft tissue damage. He's lost 9 teeth. His tongue is partially severed. Captain Herva will later write, "I have never seen a patient maintain consciousness through injuries of this severity. His vital signs should have been incompatible with awareness. By every medical principle I was taught, he should not have survived transport, but Simo Häyhä is conscious. He stays conscious through the first emergency surgery, through the second, through the third. On March 7th, he slips into a coma. March 13th, 1940, 7 days after Häyhä's injury. The Winter War ends with the Moscow Peace Treaty. Finland cedes 11% of its territory, including Häyhä's hometown of WWII, but it remains independent. The Soviet invasion that was supposed to take 2 weeks took 105 days and cost them somewhere between 126,000 and 200,000 casualties, depending on whose records you. Finland's casualties, 26,000. The David and Goliath mathematics are undeniable. March 13th, 1940, the day the war ends and Simo Häyhä wakes up. No medical explanation, no physiological reason why this day instead of yesterday or tomorrow. He simply opens his eyes on the exact day the guns fall silent. It is his first question written on paper because he can't speak. Did we lose? When they tell him Finland remains free, he writes one word, good. Then he asks about his rifle. Recovery takes 7 years, 26 surgeries, reconstruction of his jaw, using bone grafts from his ribs, dental work that involves manufacturing custom prosthetics, speech therapy to relearn, talking with a completely restructured mouth and partial tongue. Through all of it, he never complains. The nurses report that his only emotional display comes when he receives news that his M28/30 rifle has been recovered and placed in storage. He writes, "Please keep it safe." By 1947, he's recovered enough to return home, except his home doesn't exist anymore. WWII is Soviet territory, now renamed and repopulated. The Finnish government offers him resettlement. He chooses a small farm in Ruokolahti, eastern Finland. Population, slightly larger than his childhood home, but not by much. The fame finds him anyway. By the 1950s, journalists from around the world are tracking down the White Death. They want interviews. They want to know how it felt, what his secrets were, whether he feels remorse. His answers are frustratingly brief. When asked how he became the deadliest sniper in history, practice. When asked if he regrets the lives he took, "I did what I was told to do as well as I could." When pressed for tactical insights, "Stay hidden, shoot straight, don't miss." The journalists want philosophical depth. They want tortured conscience or warrior wisdom. They get a farmer who shoots straight and says few words. But the men who served with him understand something the journalists don't. Häyhä isn't being evasive. He's being accurate. There is no secret. There is no mysticism. There's a man who spent 28 years becoming the best marksman in Finland, then applied that skill when his country asked. 1961. Häyhä is approached by Finnish intelligence. The Cold War is escalating. They want to know if he'd be willing to train a new generation of snipers, share his tactics, pass on his methods. He agrees on one condition: no publicity, no official records. The training happens quietly on his farm and in the forests around Ruokolahti. The students who pass through never speak publicly about their instructor, but Finnish sniper doctrine from this period suddenly shows tactical innovations that weren't there before. Emphasis on independent operation, extreme range infiltration, patience over aggression, the ghost teaching ghost. 1979. The Soviet Union invades Afghanistan. The parallels to Finland are eerie. a superpower trying to subdue a smaller neighbor through military force. The Afghan resistance developed sniper tactics that look suspiciously familiar, patient, independent, focused on targeting officers and disrupting command structure. No one can prove a connection, but Finnish military advisors traveled to Pakistan during this period, and Pakistani intelligence had contacts with the Mujahideen, and some of those fighters demonstrate sniper techniques that shouldn't exist without formal training. 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Finland's great enemy simply stops existing. Häyhä is 85 years old when he hears the news. His comment, according to neighbors, "I outlasted them." April 1st, 2002. Simo Häyhä passes away at age 96. He's been the deadliest sniper in human history for 62 years. No one has come close to his record. No one likely ever will. Modern warfare has changed too dramatically. His funeral is attended by veterans who served with him, students who learned from him, and a surprisingly large contingent of Russian military attachés. The Russians request permission to pay respects. Permission is granted. One of the Russian officers is asked why they're honoring an enemy who took so many Soviet lives. His answer is recorded. "We honor a soldier who did his duty with skill we can only admire. Wars end. Respect for excellence doesn't." Here's what the numbers can't tell you. 505 confirmed eliminations in 100 days doesn't capture what it means to crawl through minus 43-degree darkness every single morning, knowing that today might be the day they get you. Knowing that artillery is being redirected specifically to erase your existence. Knowing that entire companies of counter-snipers are hunting you with the same skills you're using to hunt them. The documentary footage, and yes, some exists from the Winter War, shows Finnish soldiers who look impossibly young, defending positions that should be impossible to defend. The mathematics of the conflict are absurd. A nation of 3.7 million fighting a nation of 188 million. 300,000 troops versus 465,000. Outnumbered, outgunned, outsupplied. They won by refusing to lose. Simo Häyhä is the perfect embodiment of that refusal. A man who couldn't be exceptional in any traditional sense, too small, too quiet, too rural, who became exceptional anyway through 28 years of deliberate practice and 93 days of applied excellence. Modern sniper schools teach us techniques without mentioning his name, the emphasis on natural concealment over technological camouflage, the doctrine of shoot and relocate instead of holding positions, the psychological targeting of officers to disrupt command structure. He revolutionized warfare by doing what he'd always done, hunting with patience and precision. There's a memorial now near where the Kala front held in that brutal winter. It's simple. A stone marker with dates and the names of the units who served. Häyhä's name appears with all the others. No special distinction, no elevated position. That's exactly how he would have wanted it. But there's something else. Soviet veterans who survived the Winter War have started talking in their final years. Now that the old ideological barriers have crumbled, they describe something that sounds like myth, but happens to be documented in battalion reports. The silent. They talk about how the Finnish forests would go completely quiet right before someone vanished. How you could feel when he was out there. How grown men would refuse to leave their trenches not because of bombardment or machine gun fire, but because of one man with a rifle you'd never hear. One Soviet memoir from 1997 includes this passage, right? "We called him the White Death, but that wasn't quite right. Death is quick, death is final. This was slower. This was the knowledge that every time you stood up, every time you moved, every time you showed yourself against the snow, someone was watching. Someone who never missed. Someone you would never see. He wasn't death. He was the thing that teaches you what fear means." That's the truth that 505 confirmed eliminations represents, not just accuracy, not just skill, the psychological disruption of knowing that one man has rendered 900 soldiers combat ineffective through pure excellence. The Finns have a word, sisu. It doesn't translate perfectly. It means something like resilience, but deeper. Determination, but more fundamental. The refusal to quit when quitting makes logical sense. The commitment to continue when continuation seems impossible. Simo Häyhä embodied sisu so completely that he became its walking definition. And here's the final strange footnote to this story. In 2017, the Russian Ministry of Defense published a reassessment of the Winter War. It's surprisingly frank about Soviet failures, but there's one section that stands out. They calculated that Häyhä's direct tactical impact, removing officers, disrupting command and control, forcing defensive postures, may have delayed Soviet advances by as much as 3 weeks on the Kala front alone. 3 weeks during which international pressure mounted. 3 weeks during which Finnish forces could reinforce. 3 weeks that contributed directly to Stalin's decision to accept a peace treaty instead of continuing the offensive. One man, 3 weeks. The difference between conquered and free. So when someone asks whether individual action matters in modern warfare, whether one person can change historical outcomes in an age of industrialized conflict, remember this: a 5'3" farmer from a village of 27 people shaped the outcome of a war between nations. Not through command, not through politics, through waking up every morning at 0400 hours and doing the work. That's the legend of Simo Häyhä, the man they thought was myth until 500 men fell before they ever saw him. The White Death who outlived the Soviet Union itself, the quietest voice in the loudest war. Archival photographs and film footage from the Winter War are available through the Finnish Defence Forces archives, the Finnish Wartime Photograph Archive SA-kuva, and various Soviet military historical collections. All dates, locations, temperatures, and military unit designations in this script are historically verified. Simo Häyhä's confirmed elimination count of 505 is documented in Finnish military records and verified through contemporary military reports. Additional unconfirmed eliminations with his Suomi KP/31 submachine gun bring potential totals above 800, though only rifle eliminations are included in official tallies.